The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Brian, Miss Berlin, and Mr. Betcher for Breaking Down Security.
Hey, what's up?
No, it's not good because for those of you who are not in the U.S., there's sports still going on, not soccer, American Hand Egg or whatever it is. And Tom Brady is making it to the AFC game, which is like the game before the Super Bowl, the big game, the game before the big game. We just talked about that before.
We did just talk about this. No saying.
You
can't say superb
word.
owl, right?
Yes, I have a superb bowel or whatever. Yeah. Or whatever. Super bowel. Yeah. Anyway, so it's all that fiber. Anyway. Football, fucking damn football. Anyway, so we have some more news this week. We are setting up interviews for 2021. Something to remind people that since we don't have conferences anymore, there might be some topics you might find interesting to come and talk on the show or with our meetup. I have a meetup here in the Seattle area that I've pretty much turned global. As long as you are in a friendly time zone, we'd love to have you come and speak. So like next month, we're going to have some discussions on incident response. On the podcast next week, we have somebody who's going to come and talk about elk stack and or elk and how you can build dashboards for SOC monitoring and such like that. So at least I've got a handshake agreement. So we're gonna, we have a ton of different topics, and if you have something interesting to come talk about, we'd love to have you. So
and maybe by the end of the year, we can all meet in person again.
That's right. Yes, I'm. As a matter of fact, next weekend we are going to be having a meeting of the nonprofit, which also encompasses the meetup and the podcast about InfoSec Campout 2021. I already have the campsites created for that and reserved for that. We just need to have enough people get their shots in their arms and get vaccinated, and then we can, have our conference. So I'm still expecting to have the conference at the end of August, the weekend before the whatever the major holiday is in September. What is that one? It's not Memorial Day. Labor Day. Yes. May, Memorial. Yes. Okay. So Labor Day. Yes. What was that? What was
I've never heard of anybody remember it that way.
That's the only way I can remember it. Otherwise I get them mixed up.
So, no, it's great.
Yeah. May Memorial. Well, I'm still expecting to have our outdoor conference. We're going to get our barn like we did 2 years ago. And, we're going to try to make it Zoomy and people can join online if they'd like. And we're going to work on that. So,
I can't wait.
Me too.
Yours might be like the first legit one that I go to.
Really?
Yeah, I mean ours. I guess it's ours too.
Oh, okay. I guess Circle CityCon and them are trying, but I think June may be a little too early. June may be a little too early. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to making that happen. I think it'd be easier if it was outside, and it may be a subdued event, but it will be definitely something we're going to look for. So, yeah. Cool. All right, Mr. Betcher, how are you doing, sir? You're very chatty tonight.
Yeah. I actually just talked to a pharmacist who just happens to live with me.
Oh, okay,
and
good.
She basically said, all the vaccines that they have now are the second dose is priority because, you have to have the second dose in some sort of a time window after the first dose. So There's going to be a lag in new vaccinations. So basically the healthcare workers and the nursing home people are getting it now, and then they're going to have to get a second dose in the next month or so. Yeah. So it won't be till maybe June, July, August till even I can get one.
Right. My first I had heard if you had an underlying condition, and there's numerous websites you can go for your specific states where you can find out where you're at in the line. Apparently being a somewhat healthy 41-year-old white male with no pre-existing conditions and not being a heavy smoker, I am not eligible anytime soon for a vaccine, which is okay with me because I am not important. I can work remotely. I don't live in a long-term care facility or, treat or work or care for people who, have those issues. So I'm more than happy with sitting my happy ass at home and make sure that all the first responders and people who make food and need to go do that get vaccinated first. So,
Yep.
yeah. So, yeah.
Or we'll just hold out for the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which should be coming out soon.
Now, see, that's different though. That's actually the real vaccine that can be shelf stable and stuff. The other one is pretty much revolutionary way of what they think might actually help with the common cold viruses, which is what I understand. So I'm interested in either one, just whenever I can get it and whenever it's available, but I'm not going to.
Or both. Just give me all the shots.
Yeah. And, I'll just have to, get over my needle aversion so that I don't, because I want one. So anyway, so we got some news this week. I was poking around the internets as I am wont to do, and oh yeah, okay. I didn't
nice tie-in. Nice tie-in.
That was nice. Very nice. Okay, so found this interesting article on my Feedly because I've been using Feedly forever since Google Reader went away. Rip. And
you're stuck with it basically.
Yeah, well, I bought a lifetime subscription to Feedly 7-8 years ago for $99, and it's worked great. And best thing I ever did. So there's a story out about something called Netlogon Domain Controller Enforcement Mode, and it's a vulnerability 2020-1472. And it's a little different than what Microsoft normally does with regards to some of these security things. So the domain controller enforcement mode right now, I guess when you make an RPC connection or remote procedure command, is it? Oh God, please tell me RPC is remote procedure command.
I think so.
People are going to be
protocol.
Remote protocol. Wait, what? Look, I'm just a project manager.
Remote protocol.
Yeah. Anyway, so it's when a server or workstation does an initial connection to a an Active Directory machine, or like your domain controller. Typically, and in history, these have not been secure. I believe they go over the network in an unsecure protocol. They can be sniffed, they can be looked at, they can be modified potentially, or potentially be used for things like spoofing connections for other computers in this case. So there was a vulnerability 2020-1472 is a critical remote code exec vulnerability affecting the protocol. It was disclosed and patched on August 11th, 2020. And there's what they've done, and they've taken it a different route, is starting February 9th, after the February 9th, 2021 update, which is, I believe, the next Patch Tuesday, because if you're good people, your Patch Tuesday should have been on 11th or 12th this month. The next Patch Tuesday is going to push out another patch that will turn secure RPC connections on by default. And if you don't track down all of the systems in your environment that aren't set up to be enabled for compliance for secure RPC, potentially they'll lose connectivity to your domain. So there's a MSRC, Microsoft Security Response Center, has put out a blog post about what that means for you and your organization, how to find these systems using event monitoring logs, which is the thing that perked me up, because I was like, who do I know that likes event IDs and logs? And I was like, oh, right, Mr. Betcher, Mr. Berlin. So I thought about maybe having y'all talk about the different event IDs, and we can talk about what these mean for your various environments. So there's an FAQ. So there's links in the show notes. You can follow along if you'd like.
And honestly, I've already been checking all of my customers for it ever since you brought it up. So
really, and 30. No, you're not supposed to be working. This is your other job. The podcast is your other job right now.
I can multitask.
Oh my God.
I'm also parenting right now, if that counts.
Oh, wow.
Or the TV is, I guess.
Oh, there you go. Okay. All right. Yeah. So, so there's a couple event IDs, 5827 and 5828 are what you would use for, it says by default, yeah, for by default, supported versions of Windows that have been fully updated should not be using vulnerable Netlogon secure channel communication connections. If an event 5827 is logged, confirm the device is running a supported version of Windows, which in this case is. They make you click on yet another link.
I imagine the normal supported ones, like 10 and above.
Right, Windows 10.
Oh, 8.1 still supported. Look at that. I didn't know that.
Yeah. 10 Enterprise, 10 Education, 10 IoT Enterprise, and Windows Server 2016, LTSC, which is long-term service contract, and Windows Server semi-annual channel. So yeah, and Windows 8.1, like you said. Oh, Windows Embedded as well. Windows Embedded. No, I don't think so. No. So yeah, 8.1, 10, and Windows Server 2016. Go ahead.
But you need to be looking for 5829 before you upgrade.
Yes.
Right. And those are, 5829 is the one that shows you if your systems are still using the vulnerable or non-compliant version. So yes, which 5829, these connections.
So if you're seeing any 5829s, then that needs to be addressed.
Right. And that's why I think it's so different for Microsoft, because usually they require you to go in, make changes to the registry, apply this patch, click this button, whatever. This is going to be different. So you run the patch, you reboot, you're done.
It's done.
That's it. And this is what I say we, the royal we being security people, it's like, this should be on by default. You should disable it if it's a requirement, if it's an outlier. And so recommended, it says work with device OEMs and vendors to get support for secure RPC. So in case you're using RPC for, internal systems, retire the non-compliant device. If the compliant device does not currently support RPC, work with the manufacturer to get an update. So, you've got a lot of systems. I'm thinking medical systems. We've talked about that for a few months, where it's like you got an MRI system that's running whatever version. You may have to go back to your manufacturer in the next, hopefully you've already known about this, but you've got about 3 weeks to go back to your device manufacturer and go, okay, what do I do to, make this better?
And if you can't figure out how to detect it being used.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question.
Upgrade just for the DC, or is it for all the endpoints?
Well, from what I understand, the DCs were patched. If you have been patching your domain controllers, August 11th of 2020 was when part 1 of this patch was pushed out to kind of set these event IDs and to, give you the 5829 indicator showing which of your systems are non-compliant or showing that. So, if you are taking MLK day off or you're Miss Berlin, like you're just going and monitoring now, you might, want to go in and do an audit of 5829 event IDs to see if you've got systems like that on the network. Especially if you've got, Windows embedded devices that can't necessarily be patched. Yeah, that's not good.
But just to be clear, you have to have that first update to get the 5829s.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully you've patched since August 2020. That I would hope that you have at least your DCs. So it says if a non-compliant device cannot support secure RPC with Netlogon channel before DCs are in enforcement mode, add the device using the domain controller allow vulnerable net login secure channel connections group policy described below. So there's a group policy to allow you to do things. So there's a workaround, but I would imagine that this is going to be kind of a thing to make sure that people do. And I'm not sure what they consider to be compliant. I'm thinking compliance in terms of like auditors or whatever, but I can definitely see this being added to things like CIS hardening guides, your SOC audits, or your people are going to make sure that all these things are necessarily put into place.
Right.
If you're using Azure, I don't know if you have an option there. I would imagine that you're going to need to, have that enabled by default. But, you know, there are a ton of Windows boxes out there that are connected to embedded devices or older systems that aren't going to get patched. So, you know, I can definitely see the, you know, ye old Windows NT box out there is going to lose its domain connectivity because of this. So,
Oh yeah.
but what are options if they can't do that? I mean, it seems like it's an all or nothing kind of thing. If you enable this on the DC, then you're going to allow, I mean, it's going to be like status quo, you know?
Well, you can control it with your policy, so you can section off things that have it enabled.
So you can make it so only certain machines have that ability. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That makes sense. I didn't know if it was an all or nothing kind of thing, but that sounds good. It says once the security group has added, the group policy must replicate to every DC. So would it make sense? I was going to say, would it make sense for you to segregate off the systems that can't have these patches to their own, maybe forest or something like that in your domain, so that you can more heavily monitor them, or what? I mean, yeah.
Oh.
Let me see.
I know you're not supposed to use that stuff. I mean, you can use a forest as a security boundary, but you can't really. I mean, you're not supposed to do that with like subdomains and stuff.
Okay. Oh, right. Yeah,
I mean, I do it networking. Yeah, I mean, it's forest and networking related, like different VLAN stuff like that.
Right.
If you can, I mean, if you can,
yep.
You know, then you can put ACLs in between and all that kind of fancy stuff.
Okay. All right. So there's also a event ID 5830 and 5831. That's what happened on August 11th. The update was log event IDs 5830 and the system log of connections are allowed by the domain controller to allow, and then 5829 whenever a vulnerable connection is allowed. So so if you've got a bunch of systems out there that are, assuming you still have physical boxes, then that might be a problem. But you know, everybody working remotely might have that same issue too. If you are connecting to a domain controller and your people at home aren't running the patches, you're going to run into that issue too. So you might have people after February 9th, it may be a couple of months in advance. You know, it's like, oh, I didn't run patches this month, I'm going to run them next month, or, you know, in a couple of weeks after. And it's like, all of a sudden they can't authenticate to anything. Or they lose their file shares, because I believe that's the thing too. They would lose their file shares, anything
Right.
they've mapped in that respect. So, you know, let your IT support people know, you know, that there's a patch like that coming in. You know, make sure that it's just. I actually see this as a good thing and hope that they have more like this, where it's like, okay, yeah, we're going to patch this like this, and this is what's going to happen going forward. So,
and if anybody wanted to know, it is in the system log. Not the security log.
It's in the system log. Okay. And then, there's 3 of them: system, security, and application log. Right.
Well, and then there's like a million.
There's like 100 others.
Oh my God. There's a bunch of them.
We need to have a show about that in the near future. So, So, all right. So I think we beat that to death. Make sure you go in and look for 5829 in your logs on Windows, especially. I don't know how it affects Linux boxes. I'm sure there are RPC calls that are made if you're using authentication. You can use Active Directory to authenticate. So
you totally can.
I'm not sure how that will affect the Linux box. So you might want to do some testing on that if you're using Linux to authenticate, or if you're using Active Directory to authenticate your AD for your Linux servers. You know, there might be a Samba patch if you're using something like that. But especially, Linux AD, how to join a Linux system to Active Directory domain. So there's a Red Hat article right there. So it does happen. It does work like that. So, you know, or you can use OpenLDAP or something like that. There might be a different thing there. So anyway, all right. Let me see. Next thing. All right. So interesting thing. This isn't necessarily security related, but it tipped me off, because I was like, oh, it's Elasticsearch and it's Kibana, and you know,
most people use it for security.
There's more than a few things out there that people use these things for, in an elk stack, if you will: Elasticsearch, Kibana, and Logstash. And, if they don't want to use something like Splunk to have to deal with, the high prices of that, or I think even Graylog uses some, of the technology underneath it as well. I could be wrong. The way Miss Berlin just reacted right there makes me.
No, I think you're right.
But I
forgot about that.
There are customers and technologies that use Elasticsearch and Kibana and Logstash. Security Onion, if you're using that for network monitoring, you have to think about that as well. So
I think actually some security vendors, some very well-known security vendors, use a customized Elasticsearch for their monitoring.
Okay, so this might affect them.
Yeah.
So if this sounds familiar, you might remember back in 2018 when MongoDB changed their license from what they called AGPL to, which is the Apache or Affero GPL, which is an open source license, to something called the SSPL, which is the server side public license. And a lot of people got up in arms about it. And there's a Hacker News article where somebody had talked about that. And what it was talking about was if you make any changes to Elasticsearch to customize it, whether you are doing it because your product, modifies Elasticsearch in some way, potentially for performance issues, or you're adding some functionality to Elasticsearch to allow Elasticsearch to do something else. The SSPL requires you to disclose that, and which could be IP in this case. But the biggest issue there is that they're changing their license on Elasticsearch and Kibana, both. And MongoDB did something similar. People on Hacker News said that it was being done because companies like Amazon and Google aren't paying out to open source license, firms that support open source communities. As a matter of fact, SSPL is not an open source license. Elasticsearch is what's called source available. So you can use it, but you have to pay for it eventually. So there was a news blog post from Vicky Brasseur. Oh God, I hope I didn't run that name, but it was titled Elasticsearch and Kibana are now business risks. Vicky Brasseur, yeah. And she said, if you're not aware of the SSPL, you can catch up here. As licenses go, it's pretty problematic from a business perspective. Every IP lawyer to whom I've showed the text of SSPL has been rather alarmed before they even reach the end of it. Basically, it's a hostile proprietary license masquerading in open source clothing. By using an SSPL project in your code, you are agreeing that if you provide an online service using that code, then you will release not only the code, but also the code for every supporting piece of software, all under SSPL.
Did they give any time frame on when you were allowed to
leave?
So changed my mind, don't want to use Elk anymore.
Yeah.
So from what I understood, that there is a version out there, 7.10, 7.10, which is still under what they call the AGPL. And there's going to be no more updates for that. 7.10 and earlier. They have the gold opt-in, which is the Elastic license, the free and basic. So if you're like myself or Mr. Betcher or Ms. Berlin, you can still download Elasticsearch and use it as you were doing before. But if you're using it as a company, they are requesting you to starting from version 7.11, to get access to things like source code for free, you are going to have to abide by the SSPL license. They also apologized for using the file or the name of the blog post was like doubling down on open part 2. They actually apologized for calling it open because the SSPL license is not in fact open. It is a proprietary license. But yeah, there's a lot of people out there, complaining about it. They said, when unfortunately, when you agree to license, you're agreeing to the text of that license document. So, if let's say you are a large cloud provider and you are making using Elasticsearch or Kibana, and you make some changes to that. Courts tend to agree to the text of the license, not necessarily the interpretation. So the interpretation can move a little bit. So the text may say one thing, but courts and lawyers could argue a different way. So one of the things that they were talking about was, MongoDB did something similar. Like I said, I do remember MySQL, when Oracle picked them up, people forked MariaDB because it immediately became less permissive.
Well, let me ask you this.
Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so there are a lot of companies that customize their, they write their own code inside there.
Right.
Now, let me see if I can get this out here.
Okay.
Are they basically saying, if you put your own code in here and you don't want us to publish your code, then you need to pay us more money? Is that what they're saying?
So I don't think Elasticsearch is publishing your code. I think it's the code. So let's say you took LogMD, for instance, and it was built on Elasticsearch, and you had added, you took the source of Elasticsearch and you added some bits into it and compiled it. So it was like Elasticsearch, Uber Elasticsearch.
Plus a little functionality.
Yeah.
Added.
Yeah,
Sure.
You added something for performance, or maybe it was an additional API bit inside of Elasticsearch to allow your LogMD to do its bits. That may be something you are selling as a separate product with LogMD, because LogMD is a not free product. People have to pay for that. So they buy LogMD, they buy everything, including the customized Elasticsearch that you would release with that. So according to the Elasticsearch, and I may be wrong, and I am not a lawyer, but I'm just following what I'm reading here online, you would have to disclose and release LogMD and, let's say, the API hook that you added to Elasticsearch underneath the SSPL license, and you would have to share your source under an SSPL license.
But if I didn't want to do that, I would just pay them money.
Yes, you would have to pay them a license fee, I think, for each license that you sold of LogMD with the Elasticsearch bits. Right. So yes, but here's the thing about the open source bit. People are like, oh, I can't believe it. They're going to have to pay for that. And big companies like the Googles and the Microsofts of the world are, leveraging this, and the DigitalOceans of the world are leveraging these tools for free. Right. Because they don't have to pay for anything, and they're making their changes, and they're selling it as a packaged version with Elasticsearch in it.
What happens if you don't change any of the source code? You leave all of the source code as is, but you sell things that may utilize it instead of, you're not recompiling anything. You're not, like, at that point, you haven't changed their source code, so you're not violating the license.
Yeah.
Like if it's just Elk on the back end and you have a front end that does something different with the data.
Yeah. That sounds correct to me. I look forward to any of our fans, listeners telling us, no, you're absolutely wrong. But for me, that's what it does sound like. It sounds, but you've got these big companies, these big cloud providers, people like, I had mentioned the example there that are modifying the code. It'd be like Apache or something like that, the Apache web server, that they go in, they make modifications to it, and then they package it with their embedded operating system or something like that. Apache could go back one day, or Nginx could go back one day and go, everybody's making a lot of money off of our free code, and now we want to get paid, so pay us, that kind of stuff. Or if you want to continue using Apache or Nginx, then you're going to have to license your stuff with our stuff or something like that. So that's what I understand. I would imagine, as long as you're not making any changes to Elasticsearch, people could go and download the free version online and use it. But again, if you're making money off of it, they want to get paid. And This harkens back to some of the stuff that we were talking with Bytebleeder last year. He's wanting to get help with people getting their open source software to get patrons, if you will, or to get people who will be willing to, do pull requests or to pay. And this is something along those same lines. Elasticsearch started out free. Now they're like, people are making billions of dollars off of our stuff and we're not getting paid for it. So
maybe even trillions. You never know. I mean, when
maybe
you take
even
some big
billions.
giant cloud providers,
Yeah. So I think it does. Oh, well, there's the egg timer telling us we're done. So yeah, I just think that there's a lot of issues there where Red Hat did something similar. They used to be free, and then all of a sudden Red Hat Enterprise came out, because back in my day, I used Red Hat Linux, which was completely free. And then Red Hat Enterprise Linux showed up, and that was a paid version. And then CentOS came out, and then now there's no more CentOS. It's pretty much just like, Red Hat Beta, which is another thing that's making people very unhappy. So, I think a lot of open source projects, big ones like this, like the MongoDBs of the world, or the Kibanas, or maybe the HashiCorps. I wouldn't say HashiCorp, but something that's being used by a lot of folks. If you're using a custom or modified version of Elasticsearch, you may want to start looking at alternatives like what was when you said earlier, Mr. Betcher, Solar?
Oh yeah, what was that?
Was it by
yeah,
Adobe?
Solar, or something like that, or Cassandra. I think Cassandra is another one that might be similar. I'm not sure. Again, sorry if you're a DevOps person and you're yelling at your phone right now. No, you idiot! Oh, you don't know anything.
It's the best part of
yeah,
a one-way podcast.
Yes, it's
they can yell at us all they want.
Yeah, and they look crazy. So, but yeah, you might want to start looking at modifications there. They said, oh yeah, you can continue using 7.10. You're just not going to get security updates for your 7.10 plus. So one of two things is going to happen: either you're going to use 7.11 and make the necessary changes, or somebody's going to have to fork it before they clean up 7.10 somewhere, and it's going to there's going to be something else called rubber band or something like that. Elastic. Rubber band. Anyway, rubber band search, rubber band looking, or something like that.
Elasticsearch is the most popular enterprise search engine, followed by Apache Solar.
Okay.
Also based on Lucene. So they're both based on Lucene. Whoever wrote Lucene, kudos.
Huh. Okay, so it sounds like somebody forked Lucene and became Elasticsearch. So that's kind of interesting. But yeah, I mean, you might want to look into figuring out what the alternatives are, and you may be running Elasticsearch somewhere in your environment. You don't even know it. So something to think about. And if you are using Elasticsearch for your own product, you might want to go consult your lawyers or your legal team and go, what does this mean for us? What does SSPL mean for us? If you're not making any changes, then that's not a problem. I don't know how it affects companies like Security Onion that does security monitoring. I know they have an elk stack that they use. But yeah, it's, I always find these discussions about licensing interesting, because it's the Linux problem. Oh, I don't like this license. It's not permissive enough. I'm going to create the GPL. And according to what I've seen on Hacker News, GPL is even version 3 is kind of, it's gone out of fancy by some people. They want these more restrictive licensings, because they want to make sure that attribution, collection, and good faith, and building their communities. They want to know that everybody, it's almost like it's not a license; it's a social contract. This is what we expect you to do. This is how we expect you to act when you're using our source. We want you to give back. We want you to attribute. We want you to make sure that everybody's happy about it. And then you get orgs that don't want to give back or what have you. So yeah. But yeah, the Hacker News discussion from MongoDB pretty much rehashes a lot of the same stuff. Just replace MongoDB with Elasticsearch, and you get the same kind of answers and questions. So, but yeah. They call one of the people was saying it's an aggressive copyleft, which is the copyright, but what the open source people called the GPL license or whatever. So,
all right.
Yeah, ultimately, I think it's what your motivation is. If you're trying to make money, you would never want to open source your software. But if you don't care, then you would use something like a BSD or an MIT license, which still exists. Um, but it, you know, it is what it is. So we're out of time. So we've got some more news stories. I actually found a good series of blog posts on CIS Docker hardening. One of the gentlemen posted a six part blog post on using the CIS benchmarks for hardening your Docker instances. Pretty cool there. A couple kids, found a way to bypass the screensaver lockout on Mint Linux by using the virtual keyboard. By pressing the E key on the virtual keyboard, they were able to crash the screensaver and get past the screens and into the environment. So go check that one out. Miss Berlin, what was the Sysmon one about? Detecting malware?
Yeah, detecting malware now.
Okay, so there's a Bleeping Computer article there, and we had some articles we were going to get to about Bitcoin.
Just funny stuff.
Yeah, some haha stuff about national crypto banks. Some poor bastard still looking through the landfill for his Bitcoin hard drive. And there was a story I did read, the one about the tech radar, one about the guy with 2 attempts left to unlock his Bitcoin wallet. So got $270 million worth of Bitcoin.
2 more chances, huh?
God, $270 million.
Two chances.
Shit. Oh my God.
I mean, just think
Maybe
about
we'll talk about that.
just think about, 5 to 10 years ago, what passwords you may have used for something if you didn't have.
God.
Yeah.
So this would be one of, you know what? Fuck it. I want to talk about that one because, look. Okay, so he had this on a really important, he had this on a hard drive. It's one of those ones, a crypted USB drive. It's called an ironkey. He lost the piece of paper containing the access code, and he tried 8 of his most commonly used combinations. So he had 8 passwords that he uses everywhere, and oh shit, I don't know what those 8 are, and now he's got 2 chances. So. I would just say find somebody, pay him a couple of $1 million and bypass the authentication on the thing. That seems like the most logical idea for me. I mean,
I will split the profits with you if you help me.
Right. I'll give you 30% of $270 million or whatever. Or, he could just keep holding on to it until, he finds a way. I'm actually Googling ironkey vulnerabilities to see if there's a way to get around the authentication mechanism or something. So, yeah. So it's funny. Yeah. Okay. So they have a report from, May of 2019 saying, ironkey analysts have analyzed the vulnerabilities reported to SanDisk, Kingston, and Verbatim products. ironkey products don't suffer from this vulnerability. Data of ironkey customers is secure. So yeah, they're looking for something that's going to crush the ironkey authentication mechanism. So he's just biding his time like most folks. And, once he gets that back, I'm sure cryptocurrencies will get up around this level again eventually, and he'll be able to get around it. So just put it in a safety deposit box for a couple of years and just let the vulnerabilities accumulate. Don't patch it, for God's sake, don't patch it. And he should be fine. So there you go. Yeah. Anyway, so you can go read that story, do some stuff. And that's,
just wait for, Amazon, IBM, Honeywell, all those other companies to get their quantum computers up to snuff, and
there you
take
go.
5 seconds.
There you go. Yeah, and he can convert it to quantum coin or whatever the hell it's going to be called in a few years. So anyway, all right. Well, we're done. Mr. Betcher, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about what it is you do on the side and how people can get a hold of you if they want to talk about Windows logging or event IDs or that product.
Yeah, Windows logging. I work in incident response for a large company, and do that and have a little project on the side called LogMD. Just find it on log-md.com.
Cool.
I noticed that Elasticsearch's stock is at an all-time high. It gapped up.
Does it? Yeah.
The other day to 170. Wow. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it.
Okay. And how can they find you online?
log-md.com, or my Twitter is @betcherpwned.
All right. Very cool. Miss Berlin, tell us all about all the fun things that you're doing as well.
I has just had my first teammate start this last week, so I'm super excited
Nice.
about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so we've grown from like 7 people to 35 or something in
Damn.
2020.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then I'm going to be speaking at FutureCon coming up.
Okay.
About I think I'm speaking about cloud detections.
Okay. Okay. You won't know until you get there.
I've yet to write it yet.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's what I have to do this week. Yeah, all moved into the house pretty much, and then yeah, doing stuff still with mental health hackers. I think we're gonna do a like a Bob Ross like painting thing.
Nice. Are you gonna put a squirrel in your pocket?
Maybe.
Nice.
Maybe.
Nice.
Yeah,
Well,
I'm kind of excited about that. Like I've not actually told anybody yet, so like if you're listening, you're the first ones to know about it. But yeah, I talked to somebody the other day and did an interview, and she's really interested in like hosting like a painting class through mental health hackers. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Instead of a squirrel, you could put a blue hedgehog.
We could.
Oh,
Did you see the shirts that our marketing team made?
No, I did not.
It's like it's Mira, our little hedgehog guy with the Smokey the Bear hat on, and it says only you can prevent data breaches.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice.
Oh, it's super cute.
That's awesome.
And I don't have one, but I want one.
Okay.
And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool. And before I let you go, you were also on episode 109 of the cybersecurity interview podcast, talking about happier people stay longer.
Yes,
so
I was. Yeah, okay. I did a bunch of recorded podcasts that all came out in the same week.
Really?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because I also was on the Decipher podcast. Okay. That's like through people at Duo.
Okay. There's a link in the show notes to the post on LinkedIn where I saw it about her on episode 109 there on cybersecurity interviews.
Yep, so, and then I also was on with the girl that did the her name's Kaylee. She did the interview for her thing on LinkedIn. So when that's up, I'll add a link to.
Okay. Yeah. LinkedIn, if you go follow Patrick Garrity, he has a picture of the blue shirt with only you can prevent data breaches. Okay. Very nice. Very nice.
And like, I'm just saying, even if you don't need it, you can schedule a demo and get a t-shirt.
There you go. There you go.
Which I think I can't, which makes me sad. So if you don't want the t-shirt, just do it and then give it to me.
There you go. Yeah, or just take the stickers and call it good. Yeah, I can do that too. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So like I talked about earlier, we're working on InfoSec 2020, InfoSec Campout 2021 up here in the Seattle area. It's going to be in the same place it was in 2019 in Carnation, Washington, John McDonald Campground. Hopefully we'll be able to do that. I already picked up about 9 campsites last year before the after last year's got canceled anyway. So, because I had hope that we were going to be back and everybody was going to be in meet space. So that was my optimism even in late August of last year. So, you can follow us on Twitter at Brian Brake. That's me. The podcast is at Brakesec, Brakesec. That's also how you can get invites to our Slack environment. We have a Slack with a lot of active people on it. People keep saying, hey, you should pay for that. You're a nonprofit. They'll give you money. It would cost me $2,200 a month because it's $1 per person per seat per month, even if it was a nonprofit. We just have too many people. So we're going to keep it free and, 10,000 messages and what have you. You can also email bds.podcast@gmail.com for an invite or, leave us some feedback as well. We have a store, brakesec.com/store. You can go get t-shirts. I sent a t-shirt to our good friend BSD Bandit on Twitter, Charles Scherer. Trying to get him on the show. because he's just an awesome person. You should follow him if you're not doing that. BSD Bandit. Follow him. Shout out to him because he says he listens to the show. So hey Charles, yay! Yeah, he's awesome. I love him. He's so positive, and I love his messages every day. Yeah, you can send us an invite request to the email or the Twitter handle, and we'll get you in there. And we have a social contract. We're moderated. We expect professional behavior most of the time. And yeah, we're doing a lot of stuff where our book club is going to start up again here in about 3 to 4 weeks. We have CTF stuff going on with Pwnysec. He's an awesome person, Charles. Does a lot of web app security videos and how-tos and works with a bunch of people. We have a revolving resume review and job board. So we got a lot of jobs being posted by people who are also on our Slack. And that's very overall, I would say, very positive environment. We don't ban a lot of people. We've only had 2 people banned in about 4 or 5 years, which is, I think, unheard of. But yeah, we enforce our banning. So come in, have fun, hang out. And yeah, come and join us. So I think that's it. Yeah, that was it. Anything else did I miss, Miss Berlin, Mr. Betcher? Cool. Okay. Well, I hope your company gives you MLK Day off. I know mine did. Leviathan's great about that. And have a great rest of your work week. Be kind to one another. That finish line is coming up real soon. We've only got a couple more days, and hopefully it'll get a little bit better for us here in the U.S. and in the world. And be kind to one another. I know that's harder than normal, but you can do it. Just do what you can, make the effort. And have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.